Hi guys, so today I'm doing a video which somebody asked me to do. So I'm going to be going through some of the books that I read as a trainee therapist, and I'm going to split the video into two parts. The academic books that I recommend and that I've read, as well as the non-academic books that I've read and that I also recommend. So I'm definitely going to do an updated version of this once I've read more books, because my reading list is like this long, but the amount of books I've read is like this much. So I'm definitely going to be doing this a bit more frequently, just so you guys have an idea of what books you should read and what books you should try out to help you. If you watched my video on the mistakes that I've made in my training, you'll know that I don't read a lot of academic books. But nonetheless, we're going to get on with the list. So the first one is called Counselling in Action. This one is by Tim Bond and Megan Stafford. Megan Stafford is actually my lecturer, and she's, I think, the module or the program leader or something. I didn't actually realize that she wrote the book until like late last year. So Counselling Skills in Action is basically quite like a handbook or a guide, if you'd like to see it that way, that helps you like kind of with all the things that you need to know when you start placement, when you start doing your academic learning and the theory side of things. So it's quite like a simple, it's very easy to digest and take in the information. It's not complex like some other books in the field might be. So with this one, they actually have a series of books. They have like Psychodynamic Counselling in Action, I think, and they have another one for Person-Centered in Action, written by other people. So I'm going to put them all on the screen anyway so you can see. So those ones are worth checking out for starter reading in this field in general. At number 2, we have Counselling Psychology, a textbook for study and practice. Now this one I have not read. However, I did buy it for somebody who asked for it a few years back, and I recommended it to somebody recently who was asking what kind of books they can read on this field. And I wish I had probably read this before, because I did go through the reviews on Amazon, and the reviews are absolutely like glowing, raving positive reviews about this book. So it's quite a big book from the looks of it, and it's available on Amazon. The other book that I read was Counselling Adolescence, the proactive approach for young people. So obviously I read this before I did my placement, because I was so nervous about working with young people that I was like not sure what to expect. So I read this book to kind of see if I could find any insights on it. It was quite helpful. I didn't read through all of it because I feel like I know quite a bit about young people, because I was a teenager not long ago anyway. So I feel like there was just some things I didn't really need to read. But in general, if it's your first time, if you don't have exposure to young people, or you haven't worked with young people in a long time, or you don't have young people in your life, then this will be a good book to help you if you're going to be doing placement with young people, or you want to work with young people. So unfortunately, that is the end of the academic list. Next, we're going to move on to the non-academic list, which is a bit longer. So these are the books that I read to help me in my client work, or books that help me to understand certain conditions which people in general might face and would probably bring to therapy. So in general, I do prefer reading non-academic books. In all honesty, I find them a lot more interesting. So I think this list would help you in your client work. So the first book that I'd recommend is The Definitive Book of Body Language. Now I have this book somewhere, but it's not here with me, so I can't show it to you guys, but I'll have a picture of it on the screen. This book is all about body language and what to look out for and what different signs mean. So it's from eye contact to smiles to hand gestures to the way people stand, to the way people sit, and how to organize a room in a way that can find and change different things. Even for people who smoke or people who wear sunglasses, what different things mean. It's so interesting, and I've read it twice, and I feel like it definitely has helped me in terms of identifying body language a bit more and understanding what somebody's feeling or thinking that they might not be saying. Even in myself, I recognize when I use certain body language that it does make sense, and it does show or reveal what I'm feeling inside or thinking. So I would highly recommend that one. The Body Keeps Score is another good book that I'd recommend. So this one is really insightful. It talks about trauma, and it actually gives a lot of insight into how PTSD came to be known as PTSD, how it became developed into that, and how it came to be, and what led to it becoming known as PTSD, and the work that they did with soldiers and things like that. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't finished this book, and because I have a digital copy of it and I struggle to read certain books digitally, I only like to read fiction books on a digital device. So with this one, I'm gonna have to buy a physical copy in order for me to actually read it and finish it. But another reason why I struggle to finish it as quickly as I should have is because honestly, it just breaks my heart reading so many sad things and so many traumatizing things. and it just breaks my heart because I'm like, I really want to help everyone, and then it becomes overwhelming. Like, this is probably one of the only books that's ever made me feel so overwhelmed that I can't read it. With that one, I'd read like a chapter. Normally when I enjoy a book, I whiz through it, but with that one, like after a chapter or a few pages, I usually take a break and then I stop. So with that one, I would recommend, if you are especially interested in working with trauma, or you want to specialize in working with trauma, but in general, I think it's good to just know. So if somebody does come to you and they've had a traumatic experience, at least you have an understanding of what's going on, from a clinical side as well as psychological and emotional side of things. Next up, I've got The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. Now, this one is also really interesting. This one is also about trauma, but specifically trauma in children and how attachment can influence the way children grow up, and what happens to children if they are not catered to and if they're heavily neglected in childhood. So in this book, if you're interested in working with children, a lot of young children who end up needing therapy are children who've been neglected or who have experienced trauma or abuse. So this will be a good book to help you understand the clinical side of it, the scientific side of it, because the person who wrote this, I think he started off as a scientist or like worked with the brain or something. So he provides a really good balance between explaining the scientific and clinical side of what's going on in the brain for these children, as well as the psychological and emotional element of helping them to overcome that trauma. So these are case studies of children he's actually worked with. He wrote the book with another woman as well, so she has a part in it. So they tell you what conditions the child was living in, what happened to their brain, their bodies, and then how they were helped psychologically and emotionally to try and help them to get into a better place. And some of them you get to find out where they ended up in terms by the time that this book was released. So it's really insightful. It's real case studies of real people, real children. So I would highly recommend this one. I've read it once and I'm going to read it again because it is so interesting. The Denial of the Self is very good for those of you who are interested in narcissism, because I know narcissism is getting thrown around like a fly these days. Everyone's a narcissist. This person's a narcissist. The boy I dated is a narcissist. My ex is a narcissist. My mom is a narcissist. Everybody's a narcissist apparently. So if you want to actually understand what a real narcissist is and what they look like and how they come to be that, this book is a good one. With this one, similar, I have a digital version of it. My old therapist gave it to me. I haven't finished it simply because I really struggle to read some books on a digital device. But with this one, there are also case studies of real people and what they went through and how the author then helped them in his work with narcissism. And it's also really insightful because you also get to learn about how a person develops into a narcissist from childhood. So you learn a little bit about their background and what led them to become narcissists. And you learn about the narcissistic spectrum, because it's not just like, oh, you're just a narcissist and that's it. But we're all narcissists to a certain extent. But most of us are on the lower end of the spectrum, because if you like attention, or you like looking at yourself, or you like to create content, or you like to perform on the on stage, part of you has narcissistic tendencies. But there's a spectrum, and the book talks about all of it and it makes sense of it. So I'd recommend reading this. I mean, if you have narcissists in your life or you want to work with narcissists, this book would be really good for learning a bit more about that as well. Next up, we have The Emotionally Absent Mother. Now this book, the reason I even have this is because it kept getting thrown around in all my lectures and seminars last year, this year, and I was just like, bloody hell, what is this book? So I requested it for Christmas and I got it, and I'm still reading it. I'm almost done. It's taking me way too long. I'm not going to say how long because it's embarrassing, but I'm almost done. So this one, I read this one purely just for client work, because I feel like there are a lot of people who come to therapy and will be like, I didn't have a relationship with my mom or my dad, and that has played a big role in why they are in therapy or why they're experiencing relationship problems and stuff like that. So with this one, I read it purely just to help me understand my clients a bit better. I don't have an emotionally absent mother, luckily. So this one, she also does present some clients' case studies a little bit. She also talks about activities or homework or tools and actual things that clients can do to help them work through their healing journey from emotionally absent mothers. It also talks about what the emotionally absent mother would have gone through and what you as a therapist can do to give to your clients. But the book is also directed to people who have their emotionally absent mothers, so they can do the work for themselves at home. Some of the tools in this book that are really good that you can apply to your clients when you have them. So it's a really well-rounded book, I think. I just didn't find it that interesting because I couldn't relate to most of it. So yeah, but it's still really good. So those are the books that I've read or I'm reading in the process of reading. But there are so many more books that I said I'm going to read and I'm going to do videos on in the future, and I have some of them here. So the next one on my list to read, I think, is going to be this one, called Scattered Minds. I came across him from the Diary of a CEO podcast. He went on there, spoke, and I was like, wow, this guy's mind is so cool. So he wrote this book and this about ADHD, and it helps you understand ADHD a lot better. And once I read this, ADHD made so much more sense to me, because it's one of those things that's also getting thrown around a lot. So I'm going to read this one next to help me understand, because I did have a client who thought she had ADHD, and I think just having an insight into what that's like for somebody is really, really helpful as a therapist, just to be able to be present and to be within the frame of reference of the client. So I'm going to read Scattered Minds, and I'm going to buy some more of his books, because he's got quite a lot of books and I wanted all of them, but I picked this one to start off with, and then I'm going to get some more, and there will be a video on them once I've read them. The next one that I'm going to read is The 5 Love Languages of Children, and there's also another one for teenagers, so I'm going to read this one, and then I'm going to get the one for teenagers as well. I've read the one for women and for men. As you can tell, I really love this series. This one is good because obviously, like you guys know already, I want to work with children, I want to work with teenagers, so I think this is a good place to start, especially not just for us therapists, but if you know somebody who's a parent, if you're a parent, reading the love languages for children and teens I think is a good place to start as well. And last but not least, this is another book that kept getting thrown around in my course. A lot of people kept talking about this book, even the lecturer recommended it. Once again, I got this for Christmas because I requested it. The Search for the Secure Base, Attachment Theory in Psychotherapy. So this is, I think, to help people from other attachment types to a secure attachment type, and I guess how you go about it. So I will definitely give you guys an updated video once I've read these books and the other ones that are in my Amazon basket. And get back to you guys on what they are all about. So I mean, if you want to read them and buy them, you can, and I will leave a link for them in the description box below. So be sure to tune into the For Future Counselors playlist, where I've got all the videos you need for your therapy work once you start your journey to becoming a counsellor. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and to subscribe. Bye.